Cool. Alrighty. Well, we can go ahead and kick things off. We have a lot of content for you in the next hour. So I want to make sure we get the most of it. So I was just asking in the chat who was here last month. Again, it's not necessarily required. It's a 4-part series where we're kind of focusing on different things each month. So you don't need to have been here last month, but it is a series. So in the Luma link, you can register for all 4. But welcome to part 2 of the Climate Transitions Workshop, Making the Most in Career Shifts. Did I skip a slide? Oh no. Cool. So if you were not here last month, hi, my name is Natalie Lavery. I am the marketing lead at Climate People. Climate People is a climate technology recruitment agency. Essentially, we operate like any traditional recruitment agency would. However, we only work with companies and job seekers who are interested or are working on climate solutions. I'm not a recruiter, though. My job is to help all those people that we can't get direct jobs for by giving them resources and events like this and webinars to hopefully get more people working in climate. Quick background on me. I started my career in grassroots environmental advocacy. Absolutely loved having that impact of my work, but boots on the ground campaigning was not the best use of my skill set. So left, took a job at a tech company, and had a really hard time staying motivated when I didn't care about the greater impact of my work. So started job searching, came across Climate People, and have been here for about 3 years and absolutely love being able to do the work that I do, the work that I'm good at, and then also have that climate impact. So hopefully some of the skills that Mona and I share today can help all of you find a job that is similar to that. So thanks again for joining us today. Over to you, Mona.
Awesome, Natalie. Thanks. Hello, hello. I'm Mona. I'm a career coach at Mojo Career Coaching in private practice. I've been coaching people for about 7 years now. I've helped over 1,100 career changers, just like you. My specialization is in the climate space. So most of my clients are career changers with no experience in climate, looking to make that jump successful. So I help folks with resume development, cover letters, LinkedIn, marketing, networking, that kind of thing. And most need support of some sort, whether it's through a workshop or independent learning or coaching. Most don't know how to successfully highlight their transferable skills and their abilities and to really show their passion for what they're doing. You don't have to be a unicorn climate crusader. You're here, you have passion, you have some transferable skills, you too can make the jump. So happy to be here with you and to be part of your journey. Thanks for having me.
Yay. Perfect. So kind of touched on this already, but as I said, this is a 4-part series. Last month, we focused on identifying your career interests or your climate interests. As Mona just hinted on, today is all about transferable skills. Next month is going to be the art of unlearning. So unlearning all of those things that you've learned about a traditional job search that maybe aren't so applicable to climate. And then lastly is kind of our kickoff session on networking and kind of where to go from here. If you missed the last session, I'm going to drop a link in the chat now. Would highly recommend checking it out just because there's a lot of good stuff in there. A little biased, but I do think that. Cool. And then we can go over to a little bit more on today.
All right, so for today, we're doing a deep dive into transferable skills. We'll talk a little bit about imposter syndrome and how to harness that energy for good. We'll define transferable skills and types of career changes. There'll be an independent activity where you'll work on your resume or your elevator pitch for about 10 minutes. Then we're going to transition into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. I know this is a stretch activity for some of you. Maybe some of you are feeling overconfident and like, oh, I don't need to do that. But I really encourage all of you to stick around for the breakout room because it can be quite revealing how you're doing on your resume summary and in your practice with the elevator pitch. So stick around for the breakout room. We're going to then go over go over how to close any skills gaps you might have, and then we're going to end on a Q&A.
Awesome.
All right, so raise your hand if you've heard about imposter syndrome. I'd like to get a pulse of where we're at. All right, I'm seeing a lot of hands go up. So for those of you who aren't familiar with imposter syndrome, Harvard Business Review defines it as a collection of feelings of inadequacy despite persistent evidence of success. Imposters experience a lot of chronic self-doubt. There's a sense of feeling like intellectual frauds and that they're going to be found out despite the proof of their confidence or their competence. They're unable to internalize their accomplishments. They tend to externalize anything good that happens in their career. So you'll often hear them say things like, oh, I just got lucky. It does affect people who are high achieving, highly successful. So imposter syndrome doesn't equate to low self-esteem or lack of self-confidence. It is linked to perfectionism, especially for women and among academics. As we're thinking about our internal feelings of adequacy, it's also important to think about external factors that might be influencing your experience during applications and when interviewing. So for example, women are often conditioned to only apply to positions where they meet 100% of the qualifications. So they're self-selecting out of the process too early, whereas their male counterparts are applying if they meet 60 or 70% of the qualifications. Another myth that persists despite lots of research is that the startup culture is for people in their 20s or 30s. So a lot of older job seekers, so maybe 40 plus, think, oh, the climate space isn't for me because there are so many startups. But when you look at the average age of founders who are really successful, we call those, the high growth unicorns. Their average age is about 45. So there is a place for everyone in the climate space. It's helpful to reframe these intrusive thoughts. Everyone has them, again, especially successful people. So in the chat, if you're experiencing feelings of fraudulence, you're feeling like an imposter, what are some other positive words you could use to reframe your thoughts so you don't feel so nervous or anxious? So how can you talk yourself down? What are some words to talk yourself out of imposter syndrome or feeling like a newbie, right? What are some words that you could use? Throw it in the chat or come off mute. Using affirmations, Helen says, oh, I'm still learning. I love that, Natalie. Second guessing yourself is the sign of an active, open mind. What I tell myself, Jack says, that's amazing. You got this. Yeah, so whatever words change the slant from negative to positive, that can help you perform better. I belong here. Oh, that's so nice. So a lot of times when there is systemic bias in the hiring process, people feel like they don't belong. So just telling yourself, you are qualified. If they've called you for an interview, they know you're qualified. They're just checking to see if you might be a good fit. It's a quick study, Jennifer says. Nice. So it's helpful to reframe those intrusive thoughts, and you can use those positive affirmations or positive words to talk yourself down. It also helps, let's say, if you're networking or interviewing, to get curious about the other person. Sometimes introverts do this, or people who are shy, which are not the same thing, right? But sometimes they get so caught up in their internal thoughts that they forget to get interested in the person they're talking to. And that's the easiest way to build rapport with someone, is to get curious about their background, their career pathway, what do they like working at that company. So if you start to feel like you're a fraud. That's your body alerting you. I'm growing. I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm in the stretch zone. And it would be really helpful to just focus on the other person. And you can learn so much. You build rapport, you strengthen that relationship, and you get out of your head. You get out of your head. So you use the energy to fuel your learning, your networking, and your interviewing. Everybody experiences it. Reframe it, get curious about the other person, and turn it into good.
Awesome. Perfect. So that was such a good framework for how to get to this point. But you're at this point and you are ready, but you figured out how to combat those intrusive thoughts. But kind of where do you go from here? What even are transferable skills? Transferable skills are definitely a buzzword that is thrown around in climate quite a bit. And quite honestly, like I didn't even know what it was for quite some time. And I was still saying, oh, yeah, transferable skills, because as I said, it definitely is a buzzword. But transferable skills, in essence, are an ability or an expertise that can be used across a wide spectrum of roles. So essentially, a transferable skill is your ability to define yourself by your skills and not your job titles. So I'm going to repeat that one sentence one more time because I really think it does an incredible job of framing it. But it's your ability to define yourself by your skills and not your job titles. When you define yourself by job titles that you've had in the past, in essence, you're kind of putting yourself in a box. Whereas if you define yourself by your skills, it opens up so many doors to different opportunities that you may not have had before. The challenge here is, how do you identify which skills are relevant? And then from there, how do you present them in a way that shows that you're qualified for the job, even if you've never had that title before? So again, this kind of goes back to, okay, I may have had this job title, but within that job title, these are the things that I did. These are the skills that I had. And this is where they overlap to other job titles. So, for example, to kind of bring some of this to life, if you were a marketing associate, you've had marketing jobs your entire career, but you're really interested in product management. Some of your transferable skills between marketing and product management could be organization, analytics, technical knowledge, cross-team collaboration, and the list really does continue to go on. So again, all of those things that I just listed are both applicable to product management and to marketing. And when you're applying, your resume is going to try to draw those parallels. When you're interviewing, your conversations are going to have drawing those parallels. And the same goes for networking and cover letters and so on and so forth. So again, the key here, define yourself by skills, not by job titles. Awesome. So transferable skills are also multifaceted, especially for people in the climate industry. A lot of people that I talk to, I would argue probably 95% of the people that I talk to on a daily basis get really hung up on the fact that they don't have climate experience. They say, I can't get a job in climate because I've never worked on climate before. But I challenge that with, how many other industry transitions have you done? So many people go from healthcare to construction to tech back to healthcare, and they don't think twice about it. Because they're keeping the same jobs, they're switching industries. So transferable skills, as I said, are multifaceted. It can be industry switches, and it also can be job switches, job type switches. So again, as we talked about, climate is not a niche little sector of the economy. It's a repositioning of the entire global economy. So there already are, and there's going to continue to be climate jobs in construction, in the built environment, in food, in transportation, and that list really does continue to go on. So again, your experience, your industry experience actually might be directly applicable here. The key with this is to determine which areas of climate are a good fit for you based on your background and your skills overlap that we just talked about. You're going to want to try to reduce as many variables as possible. So if you're transitioning from healthcare to climate, you're already doing a quote unquote industry switch. So you're going to want to keep your job type, or the easiest way to go about this is to keep your job type or your role type the same. So if you were a SaaS B2B product manager in healthcare at a growth stage healthcare company, when you're coming into climate, you should be looking for climate jobs that have SaaS, B2B, same growth stage components to it. That way, it's going to make your transition a lot easier for you because you only have one variable as opposed to trying to switch up everything at once. And Mona's going to provide a little bit more of a visual context to what I just said there.
Yeah, so let's put a visual to that, and this will set the framework for the next few slides. So we've got a continuum here from simple to complex, so more simple to more complicated. So when you're considering how to grow into the climate space, it's easiest, if you look here to the left, it's easiest to grow where you're at with your current company. Those are the easiest because you're not competing with a lot of external candidates. And often there are fewer internal candidates for a particular position. So this could be a change in your department. So maybe you get promoted, or maybe you do a lateral move to the sustainability team or something else at your company. You can also think about projects. This is a nice way to network, to build your credibility, to build your resume, is to get some projects going where you're at. So these could be really nice bullet points in your experience section on your resume. And you also might find some keywords that you can parse from those projects into your resume summary at the top of your resume. The next one that has less complexity, like Natalie said, same industry, same role. So this might be a move to a different company, right? That would be the next easiest. Moving up in complexity, you're changing the industry, but keeping the same role. Now, some people will argue, oh no, switching industries is harder than switching roles. But by and large, keeping the same role is typically simpler because you have the same skill set. It's not like you have to develop a new area of expertise. You're bringing all those transferable skills. So typically, but not always, that's the easier move than the next two where you're changing roles. So right now we have a lot of people moving out of education because they're wanting to do something different. So maybe they're becoming a technologist of some sort. But same industry would be, okay, you're gonna hit ed tech, but in a new role, not as an educator, but as a technologist, as an example. And then the most complex, as Natalie mentioned, was different industry, different role. These are the hardest to make. These are the hardest jumps. If you are thinking about this, it helps to have great projects. Maybe you're doing some consulting work. Maybe you have some fractional work or part-time work that you're doing you've got a side gig going. Maybe you have an incredible network in an industry at a few companies, and you can bring in that project work that you've done to show that you're ready to work day one. You can hit the ground running. So there are ways to make those changes, but you do have to go the extra mile, either in networking, projects, side gigs, that kind of thing.
Awesome. So now that we kind of know the whole spectrum of like what a transferable skill is, how do you go about it, what is the most complicated, what's the easiest route to go, how do you identify those transferable skills? I know it's really easy to say, pinpoint the things that are overlapping, things that can be applied, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. And how do you go about it successfully? How do you do it in a way that is going to make other companies want to hire you or want to bring you on despite that lack of industry or role experience? So as I touched on, climate experience isn't necessarily always required. We need millions of people working in climate in the next decade. It is statistically impossible to require every single person to have climate experience. But that doesn't mean that companies don't want it. This is a little bit of a tangent here, but I think it's important to convey that job descriptions from a hiring manager's perspective, they are listing every qualification that they can think of that they would love this dream candidate to have, despite knowing that that person likely is not out there. So, as a job seeker, when you're reviewing that list of qualifications, it's important to keep that in mind that the person writing that knows that they're probably not going to find that person. So, you should still apply to positions that you have at least 60% of the qualifications for. You do not need 100% of the qualifications to apply to a job. But that being said, if climate experience is listed as something that they want, it's a great idea to try to compensate for that, to try to convey that you can get that climate experience, that you're interested, that you're passionate, that you really do want this job, and that climate is a big factor for you. So, as I kind of touched on, but traditional industries seldom require specific experience. People, I know we saw in the chat that someone went from policy to, I forgot what you said, was it healthcare? One other industry. Like, it's common to make those pops and to go from industry to industry. The key with doing that is to convey a few things. One is that you have the ability to learn, that you can pick things up quickly, that you're going to thrive in this new industry, in this new space. Two, that you're adaptable, that once again, you've done this before, you're confident that you will be able to kind of roll with the motions and pick things up. And then lastly, that you're capable of picking up on all the jargon. If you've been in climate for a little bit of time now, you know that there's a lot of jargon and there's a lot of different words that people use in climate that aren't used in other industries. So the key is that you have the ability to do these things and that you can pick them up. Same thing applies to climate as it does in any other industry. Also, we've touched on this, but identifying parallels between other industries that you've been in climate. So if you've been in startup industries, a lot of climate companies are startup companies. So that same like move, thinking on your feet, wearing a lot of hats mentality, all of that is highly desirable to someone who's hiring the climate space. Draw those parallels and don't sell yourself short. This part kind of goes back to Mona's first slide on imposter syndrome. But just because you don't have climate experience doesn't mean that you are worse for the job than someone with climate experience. So an example to kind of bring this to light is, say, going back to healthcare, say you worked at a healthcare startup and you were at that company from pre-seed stages all the way to growth stages of funding. You saw a lot of things. You learned a lot of things that a lot of people don't have that tangible experience. And if you can take all of those lessons that you learned from that industry and come to climate and apply those, that's actually advantageous. They're going to appreciate that you can bring that knowledge. Whereas if you've been in the same space and kind of doing the same things and coming to climate, then maybe you won't have that same ability to convey. So reframe it. It can be an asset. It does not have to be a bottleneck. And when you talk about it as an asset, it's going to help the hiring manager see it that way as well. And then, as I touched on, super important again to not only just say that you have the ability to pick up on this jargon and this new lingo and all of that, also just show it. When you're interviewing, speak in their language, do your homework, as Mona mentioned, have those networking conversations, try to get to know people, listen to podcasts, whatever it takes for you to be able to speak knowledgeably about these solutions. It's going to help you. It's going to prove that you do have that ability to learn as opposed to just saying it. This is something that if you've attended any workshop that I've hosted is something I really hone in on all the time, is that you should never just say, I want a job in climate. When you're going into your climate job search, you really need to niche it down. Staying broad is going to hurt your climate job search. So always recommend picking 3 climate solutions that you're interested in and learning as much about those climate solutions as possible, meeting the main players in that space, joining those relevant Slack communities, and really just being able, again, to talk knowledgeably about those climate solutions, because that's going to be a lot easier to do than it is in all of climate. It's going to prove that you have the ability to learn. It's just going to make your networking interviews a lot more successful. Perfect. So now some examples to bring kind of all of this to life. Mona, I think you're going to kick this one off, right?
Sure. Natalie, I keep returning to what you said earlier about how employers can't require all candidates to have experience because the demand is going to be too big in the coming years. So most people who transition into climate don't have any climate experience at all. And I think that's really important to hear. That was a big turning point for me when I decided to specialize in climate, realizing there's going to be demand coming. So it might be a little hard, might be a little bumpy right now, but that's just going to improve year after year moving forward. Yeah. So I keep thinking about that, Natalie. All right. So let's do some examples here of how you can identify transferable skills. All right, so let's say you have some policy experience, so job title, and you want to go into community engagement, so a different job title. So from policy to community engagement, it helps to look at job ads for your JD from your position, and then look at where you want to move in community engagement and those job titles, and look for the words that overlap. And of course, you can use a word cloud, you can use ChatGPT if you're having a hard time parsing those keywords. But some keywords that overlap for both roles: communication skills, stakeholder management, research and analysis, empathy and cultural competence. I'll let you read the others. But there's significant overlap. And these are the words that you want to weave into your resume summary and also your experience bullet points. If you're describing projects, you want to use these words as well. And then in your application, in your cover letter, when you're interviewing, you want to make sure you repeat these words over and over and over again. So they get that you have the skills and abilities, the knowledge to hit the ground running, like I said, day one. So there's one example. Let's do another example. Sometimes it helps to see examples. All right, so let's say you have a sales job and you want to make a transition into business development. So some key transferable skills that overlap: understanding key performance indicators, or those KPIs, articulating a business direction, prospecting, securing funding perhaps, communication skills, relationship building, huge, right, in both roles. So again, these are the keywords that you can take from the two job ads and weave into all of your job search collateral: resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, all the areas that you're communicating, including the interview and networking and all of that.
Awesome. So now that we talked about roles, we're going to switch or talk about industry switches. Because as we mentioned, you can be doing a role switch, you can be doing an industry switch, or a combination of both. But I'm going to give some examples of what it could look like if you were trying to switch industries, but keep that same role title. So first, if you are in marketing, so you're a marketing professional, you want to stay in marketing, but you are a marketing manager at an AI company and you're looking to go to a green cement climate company. Some of the skills that would be applicable here, as Mona said, that you would like to sell in your resume, your LinkedIn, interviews, networking conversation. These transferable skills could look like proficiency in B2B and B2C outreach. You've worked with both clients and customers on both sides, and you can envision yourself doing that at the green cement company. You have experience in a rapidly growing field. AI is new, green cement is new. You're going to learn a lot of the same things in both of those industries. You're going to have to act quickly and change things a lot. You have experience doing that. Expertise in growth marketing, taking a product from an inception to scale. When you joined the AI company, it was all ideas, and now you have a product. Same idea, likely the green cement company could still be in infancy, and you're going to take it to market. Again, a really similar skill set. Active involvement in the green employee resource group at the current company. This one's really important. It shows that while you don't have that concrete climate experience, you've taken it upon yourself to volunteer and kind of try to get some green experience at your company so you can apply that knowledge to this new company. Ability to be a generalist, wear a lot of hats. Both companies are startups, so you know the deal. You can't really hire new people for every need. You have to be adaptable. You have to do it yourself. Same thing applies. And then lastly, this one's my favorite. is proficiency in disturbing the industry status quo. AI is, as you all know, a highly debated space, and people didn't even know it was a thing less than a year ago. And now it's kind of everywhere. That was a huge disruption to a lot of spaces, similar to green cement. Or the construction industry is a $1 trillion industry. And green cement is reframing the way that that entire industry looks. So a lot of those main players in construction are not going to be happy about that innovation. So have experience kind of dealing with that whole disruption element. Cool. And then next we have engineering. So say you are an engineer, again, you're not switching jobs, you're just switching industries, but you're going from Meta and you're trying to go to a weather prediction company. Some of your transferable skills are extensive software knowledge. That remains constant between both. You have experience in maintaining up-to-date tech stacks. Again, both are startup environments, so they have all of this new up-to-date technology that you are well-versed in. You can work cross-functionally. Meta's a bigger company, and so is this weather prediction company maybe. So you can work across teams. Again, constantly evolving space. Social media is changing. This is a new emerging space. They're also changing. Flexibility, and then again, join climate communities. You took a Terra course while you were still employed, kind of showing that direct passion that you have and your desire to learn within your current role. Cool. So Mona, do you want to introduce our independent work section now?
Absolutely. So we're going to take 10 minutes here. I was just typing an answer. There's a typo. Link, not link A. We're going to take 10 minutes for you to write down some of your transferable skills in your resume summary or an elevator pitch. Hopefully you're starting to think about what your transferable skills are into the climate space. So let's take a look at what the two options are. So the first one, write or edit 3 sentences of your resume summary. So this is the statement at the top of your summary. Start by using your target job title. So the job that you want in the future, not the title that you currently have. And then weave in 3 to 5 transferable skills and keywords from the job ads you've been looking at, or you can go and search for one now on Indeed or LinkedIn. And again, you're looking for the words that overlap between the job ad and what you do, right? So as an example, not a product data analyst, but that's my target job at, let's say, a green startup of some sort, climate startup of some sort. So product data analyst on a mission to combat climate change through software. 5+ years in fintech, measuring product metrics, identifying trends and complex issues. Proficient in quantitative statistics, SQL, Tableau, and other technologies, leveraging problem-solving skills, attention to detail, and cross-functional collaboration to drive solar design growth. Well, okay, solar company. So the words in bold, the first one is the target job title, the exact job title from the job ad. And then these were the keywords that popped up either on their website or in the job ad: climate change, software. And then in the qualifications, in the minimum and preferred qualifications further down in the job ad, these were some of the qualifications that I thought were most important and that I could speak to. So is the product metrics. These are the exact words from the job ad. Identifying trends, and you'll notice I'm not copying more than 3 words in a row and changing the wording so it's not the exact verbiage, and adding new words like complex or quantitative because they just said statistics. So statistics, SQL, Tableau, straight from the job ad. I got those, and I have, of course, other technologies. And then here are the soft skills that I'm weaving into the resume summary. So problem-solving skills, attention to detail, and cross-functional. And then solar design, I grabbed from their website. Those were exact words from their website. So this is how you use job ads and the company websites to weave in keywords to grab the applicant tracking system's attention, the recruiter's attention, the hiring manager's attention. These are the words they're wanting to hear. And these are the words that you can speak to. So you'll take about 10 minutes or so to write or edit 3 sentences of the resume summary. The second option, if you have a resume summary that you feel is already polished, you can draft or edit your 60 to 90-second elevator pitch to capture your skills and new career focus. Last month, we talked about the present, past, and future format. So that's starting with what you're currently doing. If you're working on a certificate, be sure to briefly mention that. Describe your past work history briefly, right? Because that's the old work, highlighting those transferable skills, and then focusing the bulk of the time on what you do, what you're bringing to the new role. So the bulk of the time should be about the future. So try to use that format. We used it a little bit last time. Hopefully you're getting more comfortable with that format. And that can help shape your pitch a little bit better. So again, let's take about 10 minutes to write out our rough drafts, either the resume summary or your elevator pitch. I hope you all stick around.
Awesome.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. So hopefully you got a little taste of what it was like to stay focused on your new climate direction. That's really hard for career changers. Remember to use the word client or climate sustainability. Briefly talk, paint the picture of why your experience relates to that specific job title, and then some soft skills that you can weave in there at the end. So remember to keep the focus on climate. Thank you for the breakout room. I really appreciated that. It was great hearing what you got so far. All right, what's next, Natalie? Overcoming skill gaps. All right, so in your experience here in these workshops and webinars and your own independent research, you're probably noticing your weak points, and that's perfectly okay. That doesn't mean that you aren't ready to apply. You are ready enough, you are climate enough to apply today. As we learned from Natalie, no one's expecting climate experience. So you are climate enough, you are ready enough. If you're not quite sure how to narrow your climate solutions, just in review from last time, you might want to hit Nicole Kellner's resource list. Great place to find lots of information. You want to build community and network locally and virtually in informational interviews or coffee chats, meetups, workshops, industry and company events. Climate Career Work Week is next week, and Natalie is co-hosting several of those sessions. Hope to see you there. And then again, you want to build your resume by doing that volunteer consulting, the fractional work, pro bono, or projects. And you might need to complete a certificate, and you want to think about whether you need broad knowledge or if you need specialized knowledge. And as you're considering the different programs, determine if you earn a certificate or a certificate of completion. Those are different. And the programs you're considering can tell you which that you earn. If you need to improve your climate literacy, you might need a broader program. Climate Solutions 101 by Project Drawdown, Climate Base, and TerraDo have nice starting points for you.
Perfect. So we have around 7 or so minutes for questions. I know we had a few in the chat, but if anyone wants to raise their hand, you're more than welcome to do so. We can call on you, come off mute, and you can ask your questions. Just a heads up, I will be sending these slides out, so keep an eye out for an email later today with the recording and the slides, so you can get all those links that Mona just mentioned. Do you have a question, Elizabeth?
Yes, yeah, sorry, yeah. So a friend of mine who's also transitioning into climate, she sent me information about the Sustainability Excellence Professional Certification. I didn't know, like, there's so many certifications out there. How do you know which ones are relevant and which ones? Because I mean, I would like to have some sort of street cred, but I mean, I have an engineering degree, but specific climate stuff, not so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think that green biz article that Mona mentioned, and I'll drop a link to it in a second, is going to be really helpful. It kind of goes through all of them in terms of categories and like how they can be applicable. It's hard for
Okay.
us to just know all of them right now, so I couldn't really
Okay.
give you like check out this one. But yeah, that
Yeah,
green
I
biz
didn't.
has like the accredited ones, all of that. And I also just would encourage you to like ask yourself, like, do I want something more technical? Do I want something more climate oriented? Like if you're looking for like a networking fellowship, kind of the community element, I would say Tear It Out Dues is incredible. But if you're looking something more like engineering specific, then again, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know they're out there a little bit more tangible. Yeah.
Who are the relevant, like reliable accrediting people? Like who accredits these? Is there like
Honestly, I don't know on the top of my head.
okay,
Mona, do
okay,
you have any insights into that?
okay.
I do
Yeah.
know that Green Biz article has it in there.
The green
So
biz art, awesome.
I'll drop a link to that. I'm gonna stop sharing my
Okay,
screen so I can do
thank
that.
you. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Great questions, Elizabeth. So most certificate programs are not accredited like a university, but you don't need that, right? So this is just a professional. It could be a, you're learning the lingo, you're networking, you're learning more about the insides of your climate solution. What might be helpful, Elizabeth, is to think about your climate solutions and your target job titles. Look at those job titles and see which certificates they're requesting. So sometimes working backwards is a nice way to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Shilpa, you wanna go for it?
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question to what Mona was saying earlier. Maybe you even said it, Natalie, is to put climate in your summary. But what if the job that you're looking at or company you're looking at doesn't really advertise as a climate job?
Yeah. Are you meaning like, is it still going to be a climate job, or if it's worth your
Yeah.
time, or is that your question?
Yeah, even though you know it's sort of like helping with,
Yeah.
reducing
Then-
GHGs, but it's not advertised as a climate potential job. Do you
Yeah,
still want to include that in the summary or in your resume or cover letter saying that, you're interested in climate transition?
yeah, definitely. I think
Okay.
if it has climate aspects to it, they're thinking of those things. Like climate is an interesting industry or vertical or whatever you want to call it, because it is hard to define what a climate job is. Like you could work for a corporation and incorporate climate elements into your job, and you could still be working a climate job. So I think it's dependent, but if you know that the sole mission of that job or that company is to reduce carbon emissions, then I think it's totally applicable. And also like speak in their terms. So like if they don't mention climate at all, don't go overboard. I would maybe just like mention it, use it once or twice, but I wouldn't make it the sole focus. I mean, and a lot of different companies have different reasons for not mentioning climate. Like a lot of, like I said, construction, for example, is a massive industry. And even if these companies are working on climate solutions, they know their main players and they know that's not kind of their key messaging. So they might be eliminating it for that reason, but that doesn't mean they want their internal employees to not have that mission, if that kind of makes sense. So I would
Yeah.
try to read the room, hard to do from a job description, but if you could talk to someone at the company and you could try to network with them, I think you might get some more insights into that. Mona, do you have anything to add?
So I think you were referencing the feedback from the breakout room. It really depends on that JD. So whatever words they're using, those are the words you want to use. If they have a special program on their website around climate, around sustainability, you might want to reference that if that's something, and if that's a team, let's say, that you're interested in working on. But whatever words they're using, you use. But if you're really making a pivot into climate, it should have that vibe in your resume. And then of course you can tailor it for each job application.
Yeah.
So you would never use your generic climate resume for all of your applications. Great questions.
Mona, can you stay on for a little bit longer? Or do you have
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so can I.
My
So
pleasure.
if anyone has to leave at the hour, thank you so much for joining us. Keep an eye out for an email, like I said, the slides, the recording, some of these links. Add both Mona and myself on LinkedIn. We'll accept your connection. And yeah, thank you so much. But we're good to stay on for more questions. So feel free to hang out with us if you have a little bit more time. Perfect. I'm not sure who was next. Was it you, Hetty, or was it? We'll go with that.
Okay. Hi. So thank you guys, guys. I worked in marketing and then I worked in education for 5 years. And now I am kind of starting those like stepping stone type things you guys are talking about, like with freelance marketing for a sustainability company locally. But this is just like a technical resume question because I was like ingrained 1-page resume, like don't you dare make it longer or whatever. But I feel like I'm getting like I'm trying to highlight. Obviously, the bulk of my career was in education, and there's a ton of transferable skills there. But I also want to highlight my marketing experience since that's the actual titles I'm looking into. So with my new role, like should I be highlighting that and just like take off the education piece in favor of it being like that 1-pager with the important information, or like is it okay to go above a page? Should I like put it in a tiny corner? I'm like, just in terms of highlighting what's relevant, is there any best practices there?
Mona, you wanna
So,
take this one
yeah,
first?
I'll go ahead and grab that one. So if you're applying to an entry-level position, best practice is 1 page. If you're applying to mid or senior level leadership position, of course, you're going to spill over onto the 2nd page. If you're, C-suite, you could have a 3-page resume. It also depends on your education and your certifications. Often those are space hogs. So people are much more flexible on the 1-page rule. It really depends on your situation, your experience, and your education. Are you applying to entry-level roles, or are they a little more senior?
They're mostly like associate mid-level roles. So I think there's definitely room there to keep things and not just also in terms of like I don't want them to be like, wait, what happened to this 5 years of your life that's suddenly like not listed on your resume. So it's helpful to know that I can go beyond the like quick
Yes.
1-pager.
You also do not have to share your whole work history. In fact, that can hurt you
Okay.
if you have a lot of years of experience. Natalie, what are you hearing from your employer partners? Do you know?
Yeah, I think the key here is like even if you're including everything, it doesn't have to be chronological. I think a lot of people have that misconception that it needs to be first job, second job, third job, or like reverse of that. But I would definitely include like the most important things, the most relevant things first. So say your most recent job was in education, but marketing's more relevant. I would have that first. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, this is the job title and this is the years I had it. It could be like marketing skills, marketing accomplishment, something like that, and list that out first. But yeah, with Mona, I don't think keep it concise. Like, don't have anything on there that's not conveying your like, goals and your mission. Like, make sure it's spaced well used, but it's okay to go over 1 page. I think the thing is, they say that people will look at your resume for 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So you're not getting much time from them. So again, make sure the space is well used, but it's okay if it does go over 1 page.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect. Jennifer.
Hello. Thanks so much for this webinar. I was wondering, so my experience, I won't try to make, I'll try not to make it too personal. My experience is in animation and film, but I am taking the certificate for sustainability. Hi, Taya. Hi, Allison at UCLA. And I wondered, how do I create a story about my experience in transferable skills, but the learnings that I've done at UCLA, which is obviously not experience, but it's relevant to what some of the roles are asking for. Sorry, my kid is crying. So I was wondering, like, how do you take what you've been learning at your program and input it into your resume without saying, like, I have experience in climate, because I don't, and I'm doing all the volunteer things that you've mentioned. However, I feel like we are gaining a lot of knowledge and ability to apply some of the learnings that we are doing in a more practical way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's okay to have a section for like your projects. And this is like something that I always say to like more entry level people is if you don't have that tangible experience, to have a section for projects, certifications, accomplishments, whatever it may be. But that advice still applies even if you have experience. So I would have a section that focuses on this cohort that you're doing. It even could be listed like as a job, like in your experience section, where you kind of list out some of the things that you're learning and again tying that back to the company that you're applying to. You can also try to like weave some of that into your other experience sections if that's relevant. But yeah, I would definitely still include it because I think it's high. And then also the value of that program is also going to be brought to life in your cover letter. And like if you can explain in the cover letter, like you have more space to do so, your networking conversations, your interviews, I think the value is going to be really there as well. So yeah, put it on your resume, but I wouldn't stress about it too much, where I think the real value is going to be in your conversations.
Okay, that's super helpful. And yeah, where would like that section normally live? I have like over 15 years sort of work history. So like, would you suggest like taking some of that or like putting it like I have a relevant experience for like all the volunteer stuff. So where would like where does that usually fall? Where would you usually like look to see something like that?
I would say relevant experience, but if you want to put it, you can put it as like an experience as well. Like if you wanted to put it like where you have your job titles, depending on how much space you want to give it. If you want to give it a lot of space, I'd put it there. If you kind of just want to have it like as a line item, I'd put it down kind of where your volunteer experience is. Mona, I feel like you have a lot more direct experience working with like resumes. Do you have any insights or add-ons here?
Yeah. Jennifer, you know what I love about your question is that you're thinking about how to best market yourself while maintaining your credibility. So you know they want to hear experience. So you can use words like proficiency and expertise if you feel like you don't have the work history to support that. Because the minute you say I have experience in this new thing, the recruiter or the hiring manager is going to go, oh yeah, and then they're going to pop down to your experience. They don't see it, and then they go, I don't know. So I love that you're walking that line in such a, thoughtful way. So if the projects are more impressive than your experience, what are the job titles you're going for again? Just real briefly.
I I'm mostly going for program manager,
Okay.
project manager potentially, but mostly program manager I find is the most like direct
Okay.
thing that I'm qualified
So
for.
for program management, I would weave it into your experience. And remember, it doesn't have to be paid work. It can, volunteer work, pro bono work, all that can be weaved into the experience, like Natalie said. If you're going for project management roles, you might want to have like a technologist have a project section up at the top. If these new projects are more impressive to the relevant new job than your previous experience. And you can make the call. We sweat the details on resumes, but really, no matter what you decide, as long as you're telling a really great story, career story, and you're aligning with what they're doing, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. So don't stress too much about should I go up on top or on bottom. As long as you're getting that in there, the ATS, the recruiter, and the hiring manager are going to pick up on it. Having said that, the top third of the resume on the first page is the most impactful real estate. So whatever you want, if you're worried they're going to have a doubt about your candidacy, address that in the top third of the page. Don't wait to do it at the bottom of the first or the top of the second. They won't see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. And I'd say one final question, Anna.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you if you can give us like an example for the elevator pitch. Because, for example, with the resume, we saw an example, but I don't know, for example, for the elevator pitch in 1 minute, how will you do it? I don't know if one of you can do an example of it. Will be interesting to hear it.
I'll try my best. I'm a little rusty, honestly. I have not practiced mine in 3 years, but all right, I'll start with, hi, my name is Natalie. I am a digital marketing professional. I have 5 years of experience in all different mediums, from website to events to content. In the past, I've worked at nonprofits doing a lot of boots on the ground campaigning work where I've gotten experience seeing the firsthand dire need for a just transition away from fossil fuels. In my next job, I hope to be able to combine that grassroots experience and then my tangible marketing roles to find something where I can make an impact and still have that tangible work experience that I like to do. Something like that, but I would probably work on it a little bit more.
Nice. So that's a longer one. That would be great for an in-person, let's say you're at a job fair or you're at an informational a meeting or a coffee chat, where you're one-on-one and you have some time. Let me do a shorter one that you might use, let's say you're in an elevator and you only have, let's say less than a minute. So I would go, if it was someone in an elevator, I would, oh, hi, I'm Mona Johnson. And I would say my last name, right? Mona Johnson. I'm currently so notice when I talk about the present, the past, and the future and how much time I dedicate to each part. So currently, I am a career coach in private practice, and I also work for a nonprofit that helps early career technologists break into roles like software engineering, data science roles, things like that, with no work experience or college degrees. What I like about my work is that I work with a variety of people with varied interests. In the past, I worked mainly with people in academia or in fintech, healthcare, in those arenas. Most of my current clients now are making transitions into the climate space. And I was excited myself to make that transition because I've always wanted to be in that space, but I never felt there was a place for me. I'm looking for work that can get as many people into the climate space as possible. And I do this by helping job seekers have successful job search strategies. Oh, that was bumpy.
It's hard to do when you haven't practiced.
Practice,
It was
not
great.
perfection, right, y'all?
That's awesome. I liked it. Perfect. That was a great question. I liked it. You're like, show me how you do it. Perfect. So yeah, I know we might have a few more questions, but as I said, feel free to add us both on LinkedIn, send any questions or follow-up questions that you have. We'd be happy to answer them. And then yeah, our next session is coming up in April. It's going to be the same link that you signed up for this one. I can drop a link to it in a second, but yeah, hopefully you can join us for that. Again, we're going to be talking about art of unlearning and some of the things that you've done in traditional job searches that might not work for a climate job search. Perfect. Well, I hope all of you have a great weekend and happy Friday.
Hope to see you.
Back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.